morning. Wow, it's an honor to be here, especially to be with so many creatives, to be in a community of creatives. You know, I was given 20 minutes to speak, so there's not a lot I can share in terms of content in the field of justice. But what I will do is just speak from the heart and tell you a little bit about my work and how my own experiences have led me to do justice work, with the hope that you as creatives, they have, you know, so much, you have the tools at your hands to really create social change with your art and your gifts, that you will use these tools to also promote justice. For me, it's very emotional, and I'm gonna try not to cry, but it is very emotional, and it's coincidental that you know, a few weeks ago I was asked to speak on this theme of justice, and as we know, what's happened this past week in El Paso. It's directly relevant to the issue, and this theme of justice, you know, is something that we all need to be talking about, discussing, and really analyzing critically what is going on, particularly now during this administration, during this political scene that would create an environment where such a massacre would happen against brown people. A lot of emotions I've gone through a lot of emotions this past week, from anger, from disbelief, from shock, from a sense of hopelessness, you know, but at the same time, you know, I was at El Tiradito Shrine 2 days ago, and there was a community gathering, a vigil, where the community came together to do a vigil for the people that passed in El Paso, and that gives me hope when community comes together in solidarity to recognize these injustices. The fact that so many people here raised their hands, that it's their first time here to this talk, and I'm wondering, and you know, probably it is the topic that caught people's attention, the topic of justice, and that gives me hope. So sharing a little bit about my own personal experiences that have shaped my work and my career. First of all, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Agua Prieta. I grew up into the United States undocumented. My father, like many immigrants, moved to Los Angeles seeking a better life, and so he moved to LA and then brought my mother and my sister and my brother to join him. I grew up in Los Angeles and then also here in Tucson. But I think for many of us activists, sometimes we go through experiences, personal experiences that are, you know, that shape us, that have a great impact on us, that awaken us. And for me, it was this event, which were the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles in 1992. I remember I was about maybe 12 or 11 years old, and I was standing in the porch of my house. And all of a sudden, we had seen on TV that this African, you know, Rodney King, African American male was beat by the police, by four white police officers. And many of us were like, wow, this is, you know, and this had been happening in Los Angeles, as it continues to happen in the entire country. But we all expected that, because it was on video, you know, back then people didn't walk around with their cell phones, that it was a clear, you know, clear case for the defense, or you know, for this civil lawsuit too. But no, it wasn't that. What happened is that these four cops were acquitted. They were found not guilty, and so what happened was that this massive violence erupted, massive lootings in Los Angeles. I grew up very poor, in a very economically devastated part of Los Angeles. You know, I grew up in a home that was eventually condemned by the city because it was unsafe. It was so old, it was falling apart. But I remember standing, and the issue of police brutality and not feeling safe was something that we grew up with. And I don't want to just say from the community member, even from the police itself. due to all the racism. So I'm standing there in the porch of my house, and it's wild for me because you see all the little shops around our neighborhood, they're on fire. It's massive violence. Everyone's walking around with weapons. The neighborhood businesses, people were walking out with couches, with TVs. I mean, it was massive looting. I mean, it was something right out of a nightmare. And so my family, we're standing there just watching this, observing this, and I tell my father, I'm like, Dad, why can't we go get a couch? Why can't we go get it? Because I wanted all the free stuff too. But we were so poor. I was like, wow, this is a free for all. Everyone gets free stuff. But my father said, no, Alba, we're not like that. We're gonna stay here, and it's not safe even to move. We're not like that. We're never going to do something like that. The interesting thing is that in our neighborhood, which was an area known for gangs, an area that many people wouldn't even walk through in South Central Los Angeles because it was they considered it to be unsafe. But especially people outside of the community, and it was the gangsters that they were, people of color. But what's interesting is that it was our neighbors who, like an army, like a military, all took out their guns, and then they stood in the street, and they became the soldiers, and they guarded our community, and they made sure that no one would come in and hurt us. And so it wasn't law enforcement, it was our own community members. And so that experience really woke me up, and I said, wow, what is happening? We need to examine critically. I mean, at a very young age, I started paying attention to what was happening in our communities and the news, and really, trying to, since a young age, trying to get involved in social action. But it's events like that, events like the one that just happened, that I think really are a call for action. They're a call to wake up, to do something, to be critical, not to be passive. And so here I am, especially because I'm speaking before a group of creatives doing just that. Using these, now I have 15 minutes, using this 15 minutes I have to actually make a call to you individually to use your skills for social justice. You have these powerful weapons in your hand. And sometimes, we use our art forms, or we use our talents, for a business, and that's honorable too. But I want you to actually imagine, what can you do with these tools that you have to improve the world that we live in? And I believe that there is such power in creative tools that you have. I mean, especially through the arts, through media arts, through communication arts, we have the power to affect social change. I believe that the arts itself, all forms of creative arts, what they do is that, one, they encourage critical thinking. Just planting that seed, even one statement, one tagline, encourages critical thinking, so that we begin to analyze what is in our environment. I believe also that it opens the heart, and that's huge. If you have the power to open up the heart, to open someone's heart, to evoke emotions, that's huge. That is way more impactful than even than anything, than an academic, than a policy, because you're creating social change. So social change begins from the heart. It begins from having some empathy. When you begin to evoke empathy in another person, when you open someone else's heart, then you're also allowing them to be more accepting. You're allowing them to think from the heart, to explore the social issues from the heart. And I believe that is the beginning of social change. This is, one example. I will talk about my work because it's what I know the best for myself. But so my background, I explained to you my social background that led me that formed my work in social justice work. But my experiences as an undocumented immigrant prompted me to go to law school, and my intent with law was not to enforce the law, but to figure out how to break them, to find the loopholes, because most of the time the laws are written by the oppressors, and so how do we use the laws to create justice for people? And so that was my intent from going to law school. I never became a traditional lawyer. I've never litigated, actually. I wanted to learn how to do policy work. My love is in nonprofit work and community mobilization and in policy work. So I wanted to understand how to speak the legal language, how to go to DC and lobby, how to write laws, how to interpret laws, how to teach the community, what their rights are. And so I studied law here at Arizona State, and so afterwards, I've done a lot of policy work. I mean, you heard a little bit in my bio, but I also have this part about me that is in my heart, and that's my creative side. And so I have a degree in theater, and I'm an actress, and so that's, really where my heart is. I love theater. I love the law too, but my heart is really in the theater, in the art form, and so I thought, one day, one of our very well-known directors here in town, Barclay Goldsmith, who was the founder of Borderlands Theater Company, also an amazing theater company that works on awareness on border issues. So he came up to me and he said, Alba, I would like for you to do this one-person play called Digna by Pat Colligan. And Digna is actually it's a monologue about a human rights attorney in Mexico. And I didn't know about Digna, who she was, until this play came into my life. But Digna Ochoa was an indigenous attorney in Mexico who took on these big cases to pretty much to sue the government. Things like there were, one of her cases was the military raping indigenous women, and she, the many cases about disappeared people, and these she has taken on the most controversial cases that no one in Mexico will dare take on against the government. So she's internationally known for her human rights work. In 2001, she was assassinated. And so the government investigation showed that she committed suicide. However, the evidence showed that there was no way that she committed suicide, that she was actually murdered, and she had been kidnapped on 2 occasions, had been threatened, and so all of the evidence showed that she was actually, the forensic evidence showed that she was murdered, but the finding was, the legal finding was that she was assassinated. So a lot of protests happened, both here in the United States and in Mexico, but in the case, it's actually still under investigation right now. So 18 years later, no justice has been done for Digna Ochoa. And so this play that came into my life was about Digna coming back. Did anyone see it here by any chance? Okay, it was, we had to reopen it in Tucson because there was about 200 people that couldn't get tickets, and it's done, we've so far had about 27 performances, always sold out, always standing ovations. It's done really well. But what's interesting about this play, so she comes back from the death to speak to an American audience on the issue of resistance, to resist, and also to resist the narrative that is being handed to us by the government. So it's very timely in our current administration, I believe. So I took on this role, which for me, was very personal. Being a minority in law school, not having, a lot of people in law school, they look like me. Growing up poor, like Digna, and being an attorney like Digna. So I took on this role. It was so personal that I even went to Mexico, to Veracruz, to do field work, and met her family. Which are, they show up as characters in the play, and so then I thought, this is not just a play. It's a historical event in the form of art, and it's so powerful that what can I do with this? And so then, I had the idea of well, let's open up a theater company, and so Digna stands for dignity. And Teatro Dignidad also stands for dignity. And so, in human rights as a passion of mine, I thought, well, I do believe that the theater itself is such a powerful tool for social change. And so I had this vision of creating a theater company that educates community and that encourages mobilization on the issue of human rights. And so that is the purpose of Teatro Dignidad, is to produce plays that evoke empathy, that evoke education on human rights, and that are a call for action. So along with Dina, we just closed our last play, The Sound of the Cracking Bones, which was about child soldiers and how societies use children as pawns for political weapons, which is also very timely here in this country, especially with the issue of the separation of children from their families. And that's what we linked our human rights campaign to, and we held a series of educational forums on exploring how our own society here in the United States uses children as political pawns. So that, I mean, that's an example, using your creativity as a call for action. And so that is my call to you. You have the tools, you have the power. All it requires is a little bit of passion and a little bit of commitment and a little bit of purpose to do something with your art form. And so how do you begin? How do you even get engaged? How do you start, a human rights company? How do you tap into this world? How do you become a part of this community of social justice advocates? And so I want to say that it all begins with your story. And just like how I started, exploring what moves you. What is it that in your own life, and all of you here have experienced some form of injustice. You've experienced it, or you've observed it, if you're lucky enough not to have personally lived through it, although I'm sure you have. Even thinking about, for example, gender-based violence, we know that 50% of women are survivors of that. So thinking of what in your story, what in your life can you tap into that you have that personal knowledge from? And even sharing that testimony, taking on work based on that experience is very powerful. I'm thinking of for example, the play, The Vagina Monologues. The Vagina Monologues, Eve Ensler interviewed hundreds of women with the simple question, what do you think about your vagina? but what came out of that actually was this theme of violence against women and sexual violence, domestic violence, sexual objectification of women, and their own journey towards healing. And so now, the Vagina Monologues, after it opened on Broadway, Eve Ensler gave every community the right to apply for the copyright and to produce their play locally to raise funds for programs that serve survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence. But all of those are stories. Their experiences, individual experience. So I would say begin with your story. And if you feel that you need more education on social justice issues, engage in the community. You live here in Tucson in a very, very vibrant community. It is a community where there is movements for everything, whether it's women's issues, immigration issues, issues of sustainability, and I mean any issue, LGBTQ issues. You find a group, find an association, educate yourself. Surround yourself with individuals that live with purpose. Be a part of that movement. Don't just watch it. Be active in it, and be vulnerable. It's okay that if you have not been entrenched in social justice work, it's okay that you might not have the experience, or if you have not educated yourself on models of social change. It's okay. The community will be thankful, especially for those of you that have graphic art background, branding background. Oh my God, we need you. I mean, the nonprofits need you, the activist groups need you. Offer that tool. And again, learn. I mean, read. Learn about what radical movements are, radical social work. Learn about issues of power, anti-oppression movements, and try to understand all of this. And partner with community organizers and nonprofit organizations. Most of us, right now, if anyone wants to volunteer, you can reach out to me. I will connect you with a group. But most nonprofits, unless they have good funding, they can hire a marketing expert, but most can't afford one. So if you can give your gifts, to further a cause that you care about, it will be of great impact. one poster can make someone stop by and actually look at what is this organization doing, what is this social cause. The vibrant colors that you may use in your design work can evoke emotions. And many of us, I'm one of those people. I'm not good at that. We in all of the community theater. We spend so much money on our marketing materials that. In community theater, we don't make money. We barely break even, and most of our expenses are actually in the branding and the design work, because there isn't a lot of members of the community that donate their time for that kind of stuff. So yes, partner and with organizers and partner with communities of colors and when I say that, and you don't have to work for them. They're not your client. You don't have to figure things out for them. You can work alongside with them, in solidarity with them, and it involves just, empathetic listening and seeing yourself as a partner to them, as being in solidarity in whatever movement they are working on. And learn about white privilege and oppression, and confront your own privilege. Just please do that. It's so important, and even if you do nothing else, even if you don't go volunteer, or even if you don't participate in a protest, just read about white privilege. Please do that, because that in itself is going to make a big change in terms of how we see each other, how we live together in solidarity, how oppressed communities. I'm thinking of the neighborhoods I grew up. We never had design experts in our community, and it's not because the talent wasn't there, it's because the resources weren't there for us. So think about all of the privilege that you may have had, and think critically about that, and how perhaps you have benefited from those systems of power. And I want to say, question your own business practices. Where is your business located? Are you located in we see this in Tucson a lot, in a gentrified neighborhood where the community members are getting pushed out? Or where do you buy your paper from? When you do your printing, do you support the glue factory, which is a wonderful place, or do you go through this mass company that could care less about community? Where do you buy your material? Who's your clients? Do they reflect the values that you stand for? Is their work actually promoted social justice, or is it hindering? Create yourself a set of values of what type of clients are you going to take? What type of work are you going to engage in? And I know that sometimes we are all trying to survive financially as creative artists, and we want to get paid for our work. But I promise you that community will notice. That if you're engaging in business practices that promote business, if you turn away a client because you don't believe in what they're promoting, eventually the community is going to know, and they're going to support you. Your business will grow by being just. And so I want to make this call for you to use your creative gifts to amplify the voices of marginalized groups. You yourself, do not have to, you can say, well, I've never had those experiences. I'm not a person of color. But the tool that you have, you can actually help marginalized groups by making their voices heard. And so that is all that I have for you. It's really just a call for action. It is gravely needed, and please know that your gifts are powerful tools. Thank you.